Welcome back to the double leg. I'm one half of the show. Hey, Jack Picks, the other half of the show, the parlay. Joining me in to break down some UFC 284. We're going to recap the entire card and a lot of controversy, especially in the main event. Some say it was a robbery. Some say it was correct. You'll get our opinions here. If you're new here, leave a like, subscription, and a comment down below. Let us know what you think. Did Volk get robbed, or was Islam the rightful winner? How are we doing tonight? We had not a great night as far as the premium bets go, but I will say, from what I went profitable the past 2 weeks. So I mean, you're always going to get some regression, and we had a lot of bad bounces. We were talking a little before the show, but the bad bounces that I went through, starting the night, Tukhugov, I had him by decision. And I think most people can agree that was a robbery. Um, that one was a tough way to start the night, and I guess it really just set the tone for me as far as a betting standpoint goes. Looked like it was probably going to be 30-27, at least 29-28 for Zuby on the scorecards, and he loses. Split decision to Elvis Brenner, so lost that one. I would say somewhat of a I wouldn't really call it a bad bounce. Jamie Mullarkey, Prado under 2.5. Mullarkey just fought smart, but was expecting a lot of violence in that one. It just never came to fruition. Baghdasaryan on the money line lost that one. He pieced him up in the first round, had Culibao bleeding out of every hole in his body, and then the second round gets fallen or tripped into like a rear naked choke and gets subbed. We both had Tyson Pedro. Apparently, Tyson Pedro was dealing with some sort of major health issue going into the fight. Still went out there and fought as a minus 200, 220 favorite and lost at least 2 rounds and all 3 rounds on one of the judges' scorecards. Never looked like himself at all. And that's just, you never know like how healthy a guy is. And you kind of just got to go with that he's healthy because nobody really knows unless you're got the in as some ex cappers do. Not us though. We don't have that in. We don't have that in at all. But yeah, those were a couple bad beats. I could go on, but how was the night for you? You started out pretty good, but ended up in the same path as me.
Yeah, no, I stayed away from the first fight just because, dude, Zubaira should have won that fight comfortably. He doesn't do anything crazy on the feet or on the ground, but he always cruises the victories against lower level guys. And dude, whenever they read a split decision on the judges' scorecards, I knew something funky was going to happen. But there's no way. Just looking back, even the judges' scorecards, like they gave 30-27 for Brenner. Like, are you kidding me? That's crazy. Terrible judging in that fight. So I felt bad for you because I thought you had that one in the bag. Would have been a great play. Then I took Blake Bilder as the underdog on the money line. That cashed. Bilder looked pretty good. The dude's tough. Good grappling, good striking. And then I took Loma. I put a lot of units on Loma. I just thought she was way better everywhere the fight went. She ended up getting a sub. I wish I would have taken her inside the distance. But I had Loma money line for big units, and then I had Loma decision for half unit, I believe. Didn't get that one. And then from there, man, Melsic Baghdasaryan looking great, like you said, piecing the dude up. Those body kicks are so nasty from Melsic. I thought he was gonna, wear Culibao down and just go on and get a knockout or get the decision victory, and he gets caught in that rear naked choke, which is just frustrating as all can be. Tyson Pedro again, like we were talking earlier, if you're that sick or hurt or have some kind of health complications, like there's no sense. Like, you got to put your pride aside at some point and just not jeopardize your career or jeopardize getting a loss to a guy who's been cut by the UFC before. And you could tell from the get go, man. I think in the first 3 minutes he was gassed. I mean, he did not look like himself. Wasn't throwing anything clean. So that's super frustrating. I was on Josh Emmett just because of the odds. I like the big plus money, or the plus money was growing bigger by the day. And I thought Josh Emmett was tough enough and swings hard enough to at least get Yair. in a little bit of trouble and then get him to the ground, which he did. There was times when I thought Josh was fighting really well, was on top, landing ground and pound in round one. Even cracked Jair a few times. He also got cracked and then gets submitted, which was super frustrating. Didn't see that coming. But yeah, from there, let's see. I had Islam in a parlay, but I didn't take anything inside the distance or on the money line there. There was a few other plays in there that I won. I won like a 3-leg parlay. And then also lost Jamie Mullarkey Prado under 2.5. And I think there was another one in there somewhere. But overall, just a frustrating night. A lot of plays I thought were really good plays that just, I don't know, one of those nights that all of your best plays and the ones that you have the most units on just don't come through. So that's frustrating. But already watching film for next week. I'm already getting pumped for Saturday.
Yep. And as I touched on before, having Tukhugov by decision, and it wasn't too invested in it, so I wasn't like too upset about it, but it looked like the right play. And then I cashed the Prize Picks power play. Shane Young under 1.5 takedowns, he had 0. Jack Jenkins over 2 takedowns, he had 4. So I was like, all right, we're getting back in this here. That's a 3 extra money play. And then it was all downhill after that again. So I got my hopes crushed, my hopes brought back up, and then my hopes crushed again. So that's the game we play, and we'll be back again next week as you touched on there. We'll start with the main event though to break it down here. So Islam Makhachev and Alexander Volkanovski, a lot of controversy in this one. Seems like you're on one side of the fence or not. I mean, that's really all you can be if you're ever going to talk about the MMA. You have to be on one side or the other. You can't give any kind of leeway. If you can't be in the middle at all, you have to be on one side or the other. And the side I'm on, I don't think it was a robbery. First of all, we need to talk about robberies. A robbery, you can never call it a robbery if it's just a close fight.
Right.
If it's a close fight, then it's never a robbery one way or the other. If they gave that to Volk, I wouldn't call it a robbery. I wouldn't call it a robbery when they give it to Makhachev. I mean, it was a close fight. I do think Islam won. I think Islam won rounds 1, 2, 3, and 4. I think everyone can agree Volk won round 5. Now, if you look at the 1, 2, 3, and 4, I could see a way where you would give Volk, maybe rounds 2, maybe rounds 3, maybe round 4, because he landed the more shots. But I personally would still give Islam round 4, 3, 2, and 1. That's just the way I look at it. I rewatched it today, looking at it from who landed the more impactful shots on the feet. I think Islam did the more damage on the feet. And when he's on the ground, he's in the more dominant position. And I don't think, if Islam was taking a lot of damage when he has his back like that, he would probably move. Like if he was really hurting from those shots, he would move. When you're on the feet and someone punches you, you move because it hurts. If he has his back in a dominant position and he's taking a couple back shots like this, he would move if he was like, all right, this is enough. I can't be doing it. He keeps that position for a reason. Whether it was because he was getting tired, it was round 4 and he needed to take a little break or something like that. I think he won rounds 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'll let you go, and I'll give my second part of that, but go
All
ahead.
right. First I want to start off by saying that I got a little bit nervous for Islam when he was walking to the cage. Dude, he was like not sweating like he hadn't been warming up or just I don't know, he looked like super nervous or he was feeling the pressure of that Australian crowd or something. Like he did not look confident at all. Like just looking at his eyes standing in the octagon, he kept drinking water when Alexander Volkanovski was being announced and just looked almost nervous. And when they came out and they started fighting, like he looked stiff at first. Um, I don't know. It made me super nervous, but I think he loosened up as the fight went on. But yeah, no, I think Islam won the fight as well. I think it was a lot closer than I thought it would be. But at the end of the day, I mean, Volk is in his home country with the crowd 100% on his side. And the judge, not one judge gave the fight for Volk. I mean, one had it 49-46, and it was 48-47, 48-47. But, I mean, if it was a robbery, I mean, one of those judges would have surely given it to the hometown guy, right? I mean, from what I saw, it was Islam, on the feet, I guess it was fairly close on the feet. But Islam's the one whose punches looked better in my opinion. He was snapping the head back of Alexander Volkanovski multiple times. There's even a moment in the first or second where he hit Volk with something on the side of the head, and Volk like dropped down to a knee. You could tell he was rattled. And every time that Islam would land on Volk, Volk would like shake his head like that was a good one. And you could tell when he was hitting him because Volk was shaking his head a lot. I thought Islam did really good body work with the kicks. But the one thing with Islam and Habib and guys like that is that if they're not destroying their opponents and if they're not, absolutely dominating who they're fighting, people think they're, losing the fight because they're so used to seeing those guys dominate guys like Charles Oliveira and Habib when he dominated Justin Gaethje and Poirier and, everybody, McGregor, everybody. And so you see Islam go in there in a close fight and you automatically think he's losing. He's not winning the fight.
Right.
There's so much bias in that fight last night. Everybody wanted Volk to win, unless you're, an Islam and Habib fan or if you're Russian. But I feel like everybody I saw online, everybody I heard giving their previews and breakdowns was pulling for Volkanovski. So I think the bias plays a big part too. And my last thing about it is, Volk wasn't really able to get his offense going because he's so worried about the takedown. I think that's the case for every single fighter that comes in there against a guy like Islam. So when Islam shoots for a takedown and Volk stuffs it, or Volk gets taken down and stands back up, the crowd goes crazy. Everybody at home goes crazy. And you think that's, deserving of points, or that's deserving of, winning a round in the judges' eyes. Like everybody feels that way because they're so invested and they want Volk to win. But at the end of the day, I mean, just stuffing takedowns and climbing back up to your feet doesn't win fights. Islam was marching forward most of the fight. He had him up against the cage a lot. Whether he was getting the takedown or not, he was still controlling the fight without taking damage. So I mean, yeah, I don't think Volk did enough to win the fight. Yeah, the fifth round, Volk landed a great shot, got him on the ground, got on top, and was landing some good ground and pound. But I mean, the 2 minutes there at the end of the fight doesn't account for the rest of the 4 rounds. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a biased sport that we're invested in here. So, Islam won the fight, in my opinion. I don't see any other way around it. Not one single judge gave him the fight, and he's in his home country. I don't know. Yeah, that's my take on it. Islam won for sure, in my opinion, but definitely close. Hats off to Volk. He just showed that Volkanovski probably beats everybody else at 145 or a 155. He's the clear-cut number 2 pound-for-pound guy in the world. I don't see anybody beating Volk anytime soon. I mean, that dude's tough. He's good, super skilled everywhere. I mean, that's probably going to be Islam's closest fight, in my opinion, unless somebody can come in there and clip him.
Yeah, it's funny because I was still getting comments saying Volk is still the number 1 pound for pound fighter. I'm like, well, they literally just fought at the same weight and one guy won. So that probably means that he's a very solid number 2. And I will say I fucking love Alexander Volkanovski. He's a savage.
Yeah.
And he didn't need to do that at all. He didn't need to go up in weight at all. He could have just stayed at featherweight and kept dominating people. But he wanted to challenge himself and go for 2 belts and fight a guy that nobody else wanted to fight. So
right,
totally respect him there. I still think he's the featherweight GOAT for sure and could still be in the conversation for greatest of all time because a lot of people think he won. So if you think he won, then you got to put him up there. So
yeah.
I will say, though, Islam showed that he's just so disciplined. Like, it would have been so easy for him to just get in a wild fight with Volk with the way that Volk was trying to, like, egg him on into it, kind of like talking to him and shaking his head. And, when he was on the ground, like talking to him, like telling him he's not doing anything and everything like that. But he didn't. I mean, he still stuck to his plan and everything. And I went back and watched the Habib Conor fight a couple days before this, and Habib, he wasn't necessarily that disciplined in that fight against Conor. Like, he stood with Conor a couple times and kept his hands down and took unnecessary shots on the feet, which is totally unlike him. Islam was as disciplined as they come and stuck to the game plan. Going back to what you were saying about him looking maybe nervous coming out and everything. I don't know exactly if this is true or not, but like it might have been his first fight in a while where Habib wasn't in his corner or something like
Right.
that, and there's like a little different feel to that if someone that you've basically been to war with or like that's on your side for a long time isn't there. Uh, Definitely could have played a factor there. Kind of agreeing with you in the fact that, everybody thought that Islam was just going to go out there and smash Volk, or like that was kind of the narrative around it. I know we were part of building that narrative, but if you think, if you think a guy's going to go just get dominated and then he goes out there and it's actually a close fight, well, that's a win for the fighter for making it a close fight, but it's not a win on the scorecards, like even if he lost. So
Yeah.
going back to what you're saying, basically like he was having to defend a lot of the fight, and he had good defense, no doubt about that. I mean, he stuffed 5 takedowns. Islam landed 4. And when he's on the ground, he wasn't really taking a ton of damage or getting in spots where he could be finished, spots where he didn't want to be, and held in spots where he didn't want to be, but wasn't in necessarily too much danger. But yeah, just overall, it looked like it was a win for Volkanovski in the fact that he overcame the odds. The odds were stacked against him, and it looked like a win for the fans to be like, yeah, this guy can hang with Islam. And if they fight again, the odds would probably be a lot closer. But just not a win on the scorecards. I just don't see it. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe watch it 10 times and you come out with a different scorecard every time. But from what I looked at, I think it's clear 3-5 or 3 out of 5 for Islam, and could definitely be a 4 out of 5 for Islam. So
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, I people aren't giving Islam enough credit for fighting a lot of the fight on the feet with Volk, trading shots with Volk. I think it all comes down to, or it kind of comes back to the whole point that Habib wasn't there. If Habib was in the corner, you'd probably be hearing a lot of, wrestle Islam, get in. Habib's always yelling at Islam to wrestle. Get in close, go for the clinch. So yeah, maybe Islam didn't have that in his ear. Islam talked about wanting to knock Volk out. So I don't know. Things could have been different if Habib was in the corner. I mean, this is a big, big change for Islam. You look at his last fight. He was in Abu Dhabi. That's close to his home territory. He had a lot more fans in Abu Dhabi. Habib in his corner. And now you're going to go to enemy territory against Alexander Volkanovski, the pound for pound number 1. The whole crowd against you. There's threats before the fight if somebody's going to bring a laser in and shine it in his eye during the fight, which is just absurd. But I mean, you got to deal with all that. You got to deal with people talking, chirping you the whole time you're there, and your right hand man, who you've done everything with since you were a young kid, is not going to be there for the first time. So yeah, Islam. I mean, I don't think he gets enough credit for what he had to overcome. Also, I want to point out that the weight cut was different this time because normally you're going to get 24 hours to recover and recoup, and he got like 10 to 11 hours this time. I think that could have played a part in some of the fight. I mean, he just didn't look as active at times, but I mean, like I said, man, that the weight cut was a nasty one. It always is for him, and you get the time to recoup cut in half for this one when you got to take on the pound for pound number 1. So maybe Alexander Volkanovski had his A game on Saturday night, fought tremendously, and Islam just fought average, and Islam was still able to get that win. I mean, I don't think people are giving him enough respect for that.
yeah,
Yeah, either way, man, I'd watch those two fight every single night.
yeah. I mean, folks never lost in the UFC.
Yeah.
He's a
Yeah.
he's not an easy opponent by any means.
I mean, both guys deserve a ton of respect. I mean, Volk basically, you know, we heard all week daring to be great. I mean, you're not just moving up to 155 to fight a 155, or you're fighting the most feared guy at that division, pound for pound number 2 right behind you. There's a lot on the line besides just, becoming champ. So yeah, hats off for him too. I mean, that was a hell of an effort. Damn near got it done. If there was another round, things could be different. But yeah, I mean, I just don't see any way around giving Islam the win there. Such a good fight, though.
Yeah, and another thing people have been saying is if there was a 6th round, Volk would have finished him. Dude,
It doesn't really matter.
yeah, like, there's 5 rounds for a reason, bro. Like,
Yeah,
and just because he would have finished him in the next round doesn't mean he wins the fight. I mean, if
yeah.
if those were the rules, then we would have found out. But those are not the rules. Sorry, bro.
Yeah.
You gotta love that. The co-main event: Yair Rodrigues, Josh Emmett. We touched on it a little bit earlier, but we were both on Josh Emmett. I think the plus money was just too good to lay off.
Yeah.
Yair looked good from range, and Emmett had his moments in boxing range, throwing those heavy hands. He didn't really shoot like a ton of takedowns, more so found himself in them when Yair would kind of open up with like some weird kicks or some knees or something like that and
Right.
get him. But when he was on the ground in the first round, he landed some good ground and pound, and then second round when he gets him to the ground, just not a good position. He was kind of in the in between range, and it I didn't look good from when I was watching it. Like he couldn't even really reach him if he wanted to with when Yair had that guard in him, and yeah, it just snatched up the triangle, and Emmett just played around in there too much
Yeah.
and
Yep.
got caught. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, I mean he lost, so it's a losing bet. But if it just plays out on the feet, I don't know. I mean, I still don't think it was a terrible bet to take him at plus money. But Yair looked like he was the better fighter that night,
Yeah.
and he probably would have won either way. But yeah, that's about all I gotta say on that one.
Yeah. Josh Emmett. I mean, like you said, there was some times on the feet where he was doing really well and he cracked Yair. And there was one time he hit Yair and Yair kind of like stumbled back a little bit, and you could see in his eyes, he's like, oh, he kind of got on his bicycle, backpedaling a little bit, trying to get away from him just to kind of recover for a second. But Yair, the striking we know from him is super good, and he's clean and crisp with it. Dude, those body kicks were hurting Emmett bad earlier in the fight. So for Yair, I mean, that was a great way to start the fight. Hurt him to the body. You kind of set the tone right there, and you take a little bit out of Josh Emmett's gas tank and his power. But I mean, Emmett showed too. I mean, he's just always dangerous. You get in close, you fight in a phone booth with him, he's going to eat a shot to give you one. And props to Yair, he was able to take those shots, and then when he found himself on his back, he showed a pretty slick submission game. I thought Josh Emmett made some mistakes when he was in Yair's guard, but I mean that's just the fight game. It's hard. It's probably a lot easier said than done than when you're in there in front of the crowd and you're wanting to win this fight so bad. It's probably not that easy to forego those mistakes. And
Yeah,
all it took was a couple inches. The Yair had a hold of that wrist, got his legs in the right position, and then worked that triangle in, and that was it. But Yair taking on Volk next, I don't see that playing out well for Yair. I really don't. After what we saw last night from Volk, how tough he is, how durable, and fifth round Volk was looking fresh, and he
yeah,
always looks fresh in the fifth round. And yeah, against I just don't see it being a guy like Yair to beat Volk at 145. I think it's going to be it's going to have to be a guy with ridiculous wrestling, um, who can kind of get Volk hesitant on the feet enough to make it a close fight. But I don't see Volk getting finished. I don't see him losing at 145 right now. So yeah, I don't know. Should be a fun fight though. Two
yeah,
fun guys.
yeah. I was gonna say it would be a fun fight to see
Yeah,
Yair striking against Volk striking, like precision, accuracy, perfect timing, great movement with
Yeah.
Volk. And then Yair, like flashy, fast, explosive. It'd be fun to
Yep.
watch.
Yep.
Jack Della, Maddalena, and Randy Brown. Whew. Man, if you're holding Jack Della by KO ticket, I feel for you, man,
He
because
took some money from people last night.
he definitely did. I don't know what Jack by sub was, but it was probably pretty hefty.
Oh yeah, I'd say 10-1 at least.
Yeah, I would say around that. But yeah, Jack looked like he was struggling to find the range a little bit, but it didn't take him long, and it put Randy Brown on his face, and definitely could have just kept punching, but saw the neck and took the opening and got him out of there.
Yeah.
This was one of the bets I actually hit was fight to not complete 2 rounds, and that was a pretty easy cash. But yeah, other than that, I guess I put out a little fun play on the TikTok, the Jack and Jim parlay
Oh
to
yeah.
Jack Della, Jim Crute, and Jack Jenkins parlay, and we went 2-0-1, and we cash it because the book we use counts draws as a no bet. So we'll cash that. That was decent, I guess. It wasn't part of the premiums, but sorry about that.
Yeah.
But a cash there. Other than that, I don't know too much to say on this one. Jack Dilla looks like he's a problem, and Randy Brown, I don't know. He just didn't even look like he thought he could win. To be honest, he
Yeah.
just didn't. Maybe it was just the crowd, just Randy Brown said the crowd couldn't fight for him, but it looked like the crowd was fighting for him. So
Yeah.
he looked like he was getting swallowed up in the moment a little bit and took a face plant.
No, yeah, for sure. And Randy Brown with the length and the size, I thought that he would be able to last a little bit longer. I thought on the feet he would give Jack a little bit of problems, not really offensively, but just I thought it was going to be way harder for Jack to find the chin in the early rounds. Thought it was going to take him more time to get Randy Brown figured out, and it kind of did. But Jack's boxing is super good. I mean he comes from that background, and you can just tell in there he's on a different level as far as I don't want to say speed, but he's just so fluent with his boxing, and he's accurate, and he's got great head movement to where you're gonna have to be again, you're gonna have to be a good wrestler, I think, to beat him as he goes up in the division. But getting the sub, man, I think he just put everybody on notice that he's a pretty well-rounded mixed martial artist. He just submitted a big guy for that division, and when he sunk it in, that squeeze, he's a strong guy as well. I think it was good for him to get a submission. I think it puts another feather in his cap, rises his stock even more than getting the knockout because everybody's expecting him to win by knockout. So yeah, definitely a guy to keep your eye on going forward. He was in one of my parlays as well. Yeah, it was a good fight and good performance on Jack Della Maddalena's part.
Who do you think they give him next? I'm hearing maybe Neil Magny, and I'm like, probably gonna feed him to Neil Magny. Like
Poor Neil Magny,
Neil Magny's getting fed to the wolves lately, man. She's
dude.
fighting Shavkat, Gilbert Burns, and Jack Della. Like,
That's the
dang.
ultimate gatekeeper if they do that.
Yeah, no, he is the ultimate gatekeeper. I also heard maybe like Vicente Luque or something. That'd be pretty fun.
Dude, that'd be super fun. Or like Jeff Neal, another boxer,
Yeah.
anything like that. Jeff Neal coming off a win over Vicente Luque, I could for sure see him doing something like that. Vicente, Jeff Neal, just don't give him like a Shavkat yet. Just or another prospect like that. Just keep feeding them these seasoned guys
Journeyman.
who are yeah. Keep giving them that guy for another 1 or 2 fights at least.
Yeah.
Because you got a fan favorite in Jack, and I think it's just his part of it's his name too. It's just a cool name.
Yeah.
He's got 3 names in there: Jack Della Maddalena. I mean, people just draw to him. The crowd was rocking for him too.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, the UFC's got something special with him.
Definitely. This fight didn't last long. This fight was just honestly, the rest of this card was like a big disappointment. Like
Yeah,
those last three fights were like pretty good, but the rest of the card was like pretty trash. I'm
yeah,
not gonna lie.
bad performances.
I'm usually pretty just happy to have fights, but for a pay-per-view, like two fights on the the main card, and then the rest of the premiums or prelims, fucking terrible, like
Yeah.
really bad. And then looking for next week, we'll talk about that later. But next week is really rough too. It's like, Justin Tafa though, just one hitter quitter, left cross, and puts out Parker Porter. I don't even want to talk about this one because it's just like don't really care unless you want to say anything about that one.
I got nothing to say about it, honestly. I mean, Tafa, he usually wins by KO or loses by decision.
Yeah.
Parker Porter, rough go of it. Fought John Jones 15 years ago.
Yep. And
Don't know how.
didn't help him last night. I'll tell you that.
No.
Jim Crute, Alonzo Menifield. This one was, I will say this was like somewhat entertaining. Like really disappointing as far as like how it played out because it could have been more entertaining, but it was just like wild stuff. I mean, let's look at the box score again, or the stats, I guess. I mean, 3 submission attempts by Jim Crute, 2 knockdowns by Alonzo Menifield. So 6 takedowns by Jim Crute. It was just wild.
Yeah.
Like Jim Crute almost had him finished a couple times on the ground in round 1, and then it looked like he was just gassed. Like even on the feet in round 1, he was not doing well. Like he was getting like straight up just a regular jab by Alonzo Menifield and just getting touched by it every time.
Mm-hmm.
I could not understand it how he was that bad on the feet. I don't know if he was just so tired or something. I mean, it was a fight in the morning, so like I don't. Maybe these Aussie guys didn't adjust their like sleep schedule that much, and they were just tired. That's why they weren't like going for finishes a lot on the prelims and stuff. But Jim Crute, you're not going to do much in this division if you can't stand. Like, bro, you're wrestling. You're lucky you got 50% of your takedowns because Alonzo Menifield kind of gassed too. And if he didn't gas, like he would have probably schmurdered him. Like if
He was one punch away.
Yeah, like no, look too. He would flurry and then get Jim Crute up against the cage and then clinch him. I'm like, dude, why do you not just like push off of him and start throwing your hands? Like, I don't even have a bet on you, but I'm telling you, that's how you do it. Like, you might be tired, but this guy's more tired and he's hurt. Like, just throw a few more punches, you could have had him out.
Yep.
But I guess props to the ref for not stopping it because Jim Crute comes back and wins the 3rd round, and you get the point deduction too for the cage grab, trying to avoid the takedown, which honestly I think is kind of fair.
Yeah,
because that's where Jim Crute wanted to take the fight, and if he gets him to the ground, that's a big advantage for him because he was taking a lot of damage on the feet and everything. So kind of a warranted point, but yeah, I just never like to see that kind of stuff happen. It's kind of a weird fight, just a super weird fight.
Yeah, I gave out on TikTok. I gave out Alonzo Menifield round 1 KO plus 650, or round 2 plus 850. Dude, that was so frustrating. I mean, he like we were saying,
Round
he
2,
had.
he was done.
He was so done. I mean, he had him so badly hurt. He was basically out on his feet to the point where Mark Goddard sprinted from the other side of the cage to step in because he was anticipating Alonzo hitting him one more time and it was going to be done. And instead, Alonzo hugs him and sits there and catches his breath. I'm like, dude, no time for catching your breath. You got to hit him one more time, whether it's clean or not. And Mark Goddard's going to call this fight. And then the fence grab, which I think Crute got it to the ground anyways there, didn't he?
Yeah,
Or
he
no?
took the point, and then he started him back in the same position, and then he got to the time.
Oh man, dude, that's so frustrating. Because that'd have been, plus 850. That'd been amazing.
Yeah.
Also had Alonzo on the money line, and if it wasn't for the point, he would have won. So just a frustrating fight to watch if you had money on Alonzo Menifield by KO, 1st or 2nd round KO, money line, anything. But yeah, I mean, Crute's he's got to fix some stuff if he wants to keep going. I mean, that's damn near 3 knockout or doctor stoppages in a row. His face was, battered.
Yeah,
He's got to do some stuff if he wants to stick around at this level.
He offered nothing on the feet, like literally
Nah.
nothing. And I had Crute by sub and Crute inside the distance for a little play. And I thought he was almost going to get it a couple times there, which would have made the night a little bit better. But
Yeah.
how about them saying, "No, let's run it back"? No, bro, you don't want to run this back. Like,
No.
this is a terrible fight. Yeah, you're not going to run that back by any means. I don't even want to talk about this one too much. Tyson Pedro,
Yeah.
Bukauskas, we kind of already touched on it. Unless you want to say anything more, but
I mean, just the Pedro, if you're that badly hurt or, health conditions, whatever, you just put your pride aside and reschedule the fight in a month or two, but don't go in there injured or sick or whatever you had going on. And if you do that, don't make that excuse after the fight. It's my opinion.
yeah,
That's all I got.
yeah. I mean, like, you're going into a very dangerous sport. Like,
Yeah.
if you go in there hurt, or I don't know, he didn't really say what it was, but he just said health issue. So I would tend to think it has to do something with the weight cut, because if he was hurt, I mean, Bukauskas took it on 9 days' notice. So
Yeah.
um, the injury would have had to happen within those 9 days. They don't really do much as far as training goes the last like 7 days. Usually it's just about the weight cut. So it was probably just a bad weight cut, had some health issues the morning of or something like that,
Yeah.
as far as
Had to have been.
rehydration, and
Yeah.
just was like super lethargic or something like that. Didn't look like himself. But you're going into a very violent sport, and if you're not going in there 100%, there's some very bad stuff that could happen.
Yep.
And I'm surprised that he went out there and fought. Whether you want to say he's a badass for doing that or not, but I would tend not to think that way. Josh Culibao, Mullarkey, Baghdasaryan, we touched on this one too. Culibao just finds ways to get it done, I guess. I mean, that nut shot that Mullarkey hit him with, I thought they were probably going to stop it because it looked like it was a pretty rough one.
Oh yeah.
And he didn't take the whole 5 minutes. I was like, the doctor came out with like a minute in, and I'm like, dude, he's got 4 more minutes. Like,
Mm-hmm.
why is he coming out so early? I don't know what was up with that, but comes back and Melsick continues to piece him up. What did he like catch a kick or something? Or it's kind of like a in between kick and just kind of fell and then
Yeah,
fell on
kind
his
of
back and took the
I think it was off balance and when he was on one foot, he was on his heel and just kind of slipped back, fell on his ass, and Culibao jumped on the neck straight away. So props to him. But Melsick looks sharp on the feet, I thought. And dude, if you look at him in there, he's just a strong dude. Throws those kicks with everything he's got. He was catching the body. I mean, he busted Culibao's nose open. Sucks not getting that one. So I think if there's not a finish in that fight, Melsick just cruises and pieces him up for a 30-27, 29-28 victory.
Yeah, and could have found a late finish too. I mean,
Yeah,
he did a lot
sure.
of damage to him in the first round. Like,
Yeah.
Kulibao's face was busted, like pretty busted. This one was like ridiculous to watch. Shannon Ross, Clayton Rodrigues, quick finish there.
Super quick.
The line, looking back at it now, it's like I'm so pissed I didn't take anything on Rodrigues, because Shannon Ross looked like he did not belong in there at all. Like,
Yeah,
it
that's
looks so clear that Rodrigues knew, like, I'm just gonna go out there and just hurt this guy, and he's not gonna have anything to can't do anything about it. Like, Shannon Ross came into the UFC 1-2 in his last 3. So it just looked like he was a placeholder. Like, they just kind of needed another Aussie to throw on his card. It didn't look like he belonged at all. Rodrigues, I wouldn't put too much stock into that win, but got it done very easily. What do you got on that one?
that's about it. I mean, I didn't put anything on this one besides a round 3 finish by Rodrigues for like just a fraction of a unit. So Shannon Ross, the writing should have been on the wall. I should have caught this and noticed it. But I mean, Shannon Ross got into the UFC basically for being tough. I mean, he took a nasty knockout on the Contender Series, fought with appendicitis, basically knocked out 3 times in that fight on the Contender Series and kept going and then finally got finished. But yeah, man, he's just not at this level, unfortunately. Maybe he is one day, but right now he's not. And he's a savage, man. I should have seen that one coming from a mile away. But yeah, that's about it. Shannon Ross, poor guy. I mean, that did not last long at all, and sucks in front of. I don't know. Was it? Is he from Australia?
Shannon Ross, yeah.
Is he? Yeah. So that, I mean, being in front of your home country, that kind of sucks. But that's about all I got.
Yep. Jamie Mullarkey getting it done all 3 rounds. Won't spend too much time on this one. Fought the exact game plan he needed to get the unanimous decision win. Prado didn't look like he was ever willing to really let it go.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much the story there. You got anything else on that one?
Just Prado is obviously a strong and powerful guy, but I mean, it just shows you there's levels to this game. You can be a beast and a huge finisher on the regional scene, but getting to the UFC and you fight a guy like Mullarkey, who's disciplined, good fight IQ, just going to be tough to keep getting those wins if you're Prado. Got to do something different, or you need more time on the regional scene. But yeah, Mullarkey did what he had to.
Definitely. Jack Jenkins down. Shainis. Surprised this one went all 3.
Yeah.
Especially after those leg kicks, man, by
Dude,
Jack
he does that.
Jenkins.
It's nasty.
They were talking him up all week about Jack Jenkins' leg kicks, and he really showed up and proved it. Those things look like you could chop a tree down with those. Don Shainis absorbed 14 of them, 14 of 16. So, I mean, he hits them when he hits them. It looked like he could have just kept doing that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm surprised he even went for takedowns. Watching the fight, like he had a clear advantage on the feet, and Don Shainis would probably he kind of engaged in the wrestling more. I think that's probably why he even went for the takedowns and everything like that. But on the feet, Jack Jenkins looked pretty dang good. Don Shainis not necessarily a savage on the feet by any means, but yeah, good win for Jack Jenkins in his debut. What do you got on that?
Yeah, no, Jack Jenkins is going to be a good fighter going forward, I think. Reminds me of Justin Gaethje with the leg kicks. He's just powerful, and obviously he's accurate with them. If you can go 14 of 16 on leg kicks, that's pretty impressive. And every single one he landed did a lot of damage.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just a guy too that as he gets older and goes forward in the UFC, he's going to get better and better. The grappling, his striking's good, but yeah, I just think he's a guy that UFC can kind of cling to as an up and coming prospect and put him in good situations to get wins for a couple fights, and then see what he does and where he can go from there. But yeah, good performance. He's tough too, so yeah, he's got to keep your eye on.
Your girl Loma Lookboonmee and
Loma
Reed. Loma. If you had the over 2.5, you're probably hurting.
Yeah.
And if you had Loma by decision, which most people, I mean, Loma was damn near minus 300, close to minus 300, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So most people are probably buying that down to, by decision. And she goes and gets the rear naked choke, which was really something. But she looked good on the feet in round 1. Got the takedown in round 1, and I mean, Elise Reed was bleeding all over, but Elise Reed ends up on top at the end of 1. Goes into round 2, gets a takedown, and gets the sub pretty quickly there. So, I mean, she went after it. Elise Reed doesn't have the best ground game, and Lookboonmee exposed that, as a lot of people have. Your girl cashing, though.
Dude, I think she's underrated. I really do. That was just one that I was willing to lay the money on a big favorite just because I knew she's going to be better everywhere. On the feet, like Elise Reed's a good striker, but when she came in and landed a couple good shots and had that little flurry, and Loma just slipped just one of those and just cracked her with an overhand right, stopped Elise in her tracks. I mean, Loma, her Muay Thai is some of the best in that division. I mean, the kicks, all of it. And then she showed she's a savage on the ground as well. Made a mistake, and Elise Reed got him out in the end of the 1. But second round when she got her back. I mean, it was over. Loma's a pretty well-rounded fighter. I love it when she's fighting lower level competition because I just think she's better than a lot of the girls in that division. But yeah, it was a good cash for sure.
Keep her on the radar because
Yep.
she gets it done and she's fairly consistent.
Hmm.
Shane Young, like Bilder, I'm pissed I didn't hop on the Blake Bilder train because when I watched Shane Young, like I just wasn't impressed at all, and he just never like lets his hands go,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
ever. I watched like 3 or 4 fights of his in the UFC, just never really lets it go on the feet. He didn't do it in this fight either, and he's coming off of like 2 years, I think, like almost over 2 years off, um, in his return fight, and he's still the same fighter. So I don't know what's going on, but yeah, Shane Young never let it go on the feet. Blake Bilder looked like he could have taken this fight into his hands a lot more than he did. But Shane Young stuffed a couple takedowns, and it was pretty much on the feet battle. Blake Bilder looked pretty good on the feet. I didn't
His
think he was.
movement's good.
Yeah, I didn't think he was going to be that good on the feet. But I mean, Shane Young didn't let it go at all, and Blake Bilder
Yeah.
took advantage of it. Good cash for you though.
Yeah, and dude, Shane Young by round 3 had nothing on the end of his shots. I mean, he was throwing a little bit, but nothing that would even hurt Bilder. And Bilder, yeah, on the feet, I expected Bilder to, take the back and maybe find a submission, but on the feet, his movement, his side to side movement, I think made it hard for Shane Young to even know what to throw at him. Like he could never find where he was going to be,
Yeah, he
and
was
Bilder
bouncing.
kept that. Yeah, yeah, and Bilder kept that movement up for 3 rounds. Ultimately, got the win. It was a great win for him. Cashes as the underdog. It was a perfect way to start my night. Yeah, but at the same time, like Bilder doesn't, to me, look like a guy that's going to go and beat a lot of guys in the division. Obviously, the grappling's really good and the striking was good enough to beat Shane Young. But as you keep going up in the UFC, I think he'll find some problems. But he's going to get better too. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I don't know. It was a good cash to start the night.
He looked like a specimen, man. He was shredded and
Yeah, in shape for
looked
sure.
like he definitely tracks his calories. Zuby Tukhugov and Elvis Brenner. Uh, won't spend too much time on this one, but to me, it looked like Tukhugov was landing the more flush shots, and it looked like he was just timing Brenner a lot better on the feet. But
Hmm.
Brenner threw a lot at him, which I'm trying to like get myself to believe in the judges and like what they see. Brenner threw a lot of strikes. It just didn't look like many of them landed like super
Right.
flush.
Yeah.
Tukhugov landed a lot more. I mean, he had that cut on his like forehead that maybe swayed the judges that way. They're like, okay, he's taking a lot of damage here, but Tukhugov was like just in between Brenner's punches, in between his kicks. Like one shot, bang, uh, left hook, left jab, right cross, all that good stuff. And it just looked like he won all 3 rounds, in my opinion, but ultimately not. And he was like what, like minus 700 before they read the decision, or like towards the end of round 3.
Yeah.
So I'm like, bro, I actually remember seeing that, and I'm like, yeah, maybe I just sprinkle a little here. Whenever I see that, when they give the live odds at like towards the end of round 3, and it's that wide, I'm like, well, no, why not just throw a couple bucks on the dog here? And
Yeah.
you're on the right side of the robbery. But I
Yeah.
never do it because it's like, no, dude, like, how would they give the fight to that guy? But yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, Brenner fought. I mean, Brenner was moving backwards the whole time. Zubaira was pushing him back. Zubaira was more offensive, controlled the octagon. It shocked me. It shocked the announcers. That's kind of when like, I'm not seeing the announcers have it correct 100% of the time, but when John Anik, who's probably the most least biased commentator there is saying like, reading off the stats and basically saying, well, it should be a good decision win for Zubaira. Here's the judge's decision. And then they start laughing after they get done announcing the winner. I mean, that should tell you something there that
Yeah, they were not happy.
And 30-27 for Elvis Brenner on one. I mean, that is ridiculous. 29-28 across the board, whatever. But 30-27, like, are you kidding me with that? That's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, Zubaira outstruck Brenner in round 2, 36-23.
Yeah.
So I mean, come on, bro. Like,
yeah,
it's pretty.
There's no 30-27 there in any world.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, Brenner mixed it up a little bit more, landed more leg kicks, more body shots, but Zuby landed 64 of his 73 64 of his 70 to the head.
Yeah, that's accuracy.
Yeah, that's pretty dang good. Pretty dang good. So I guess, I don't know, maybe if you're looking for something to make someone to mix it up or something, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to like see what they see, but I'm not really getting there. That is it for this card. But yeah, as we talked about a little bit earlier, next weekend we had a main event change. Jessica Andrade stepping in for Tyler Santos to take on Aaron Blanchfield. Got 11 fights on the card right now. I can't say any of them are that intriguing, but I don't know if you've seen this. We got an undefeated Russian fighter making his debut. Kusin Askabov. I think that's how you say it. 23-0. Coming out of the WWFC fighting promotion. 23-0. His last 3 fights, first round finishes. Hasn't fought since 2020, though. He had a couple bouts, 2021 and in 2022, that fizzled out. Training out of Tiger Muay Thai and American Top Team. So really, that is the fighter I'm looking forward to watching this weekend.
I think we got a fighter from Zimbabwe too.
Yeah,
that might be a first.
Themba Gorimbo making his debut, 10-3, taking on AJ Fletcher.
Yeah, tough task. Yeah, that's got to be a first in the UFC. Zimbabwe.
I think it is. It's got to be. I don't remember anybody else. But yeah, overall, I mean, the card pretty cheeks. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty cheeks. Jim Miller though, taking on Alexander Hernandez. That's not a bad fight. But the main event for a women's fight is actually really good. Jessica Andrade, Aaron Blanchfield should be a good fight. Jessica Andrade fought less than a month ago, so stepping in there again.
And Blanchfield was she a favorite against Santos?
I never saw the lines come out for that.
Because if so, I mean, she went from being a favorite to being the dog now, which is after watching Jessica Andrade in her last fight against Lauren Murphy, it's like, how could you bet against her? I mean, she looks so solid, but Blanchfield, I mean, obviously, complete different style. Should be fun to try to figure that one out.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to getting in the lab to get you guys the picks and get you guys informed on the card. We'll be getting that video out to you as soon as we can, but we don't want to do it before we're not fully informed on the card. So we'll be getting that to you soon. Leave a like, comment, and a subscription down below at the Double Leg on all the medias. And if you want to join the premium, that will be available to you. Link is in the description for that. At HeyJaiPicks on all the medias. For me, where can they find you?
TikTok, The Parlay, Instagram, The Parlay _media, Twitter, and YouTube, The Parlay MMA. I forgot my handle there for a minute.
All right.
Think on that.
Till next time, this is UFC Vegas 69. We're finally there. UFC Vegas 69. Till then, the Double Leg signing out.